I was at the pharmacy when my granddaughter suddenly grabbed my hand and said, "Grandma, we need to pretend we're leaving together. Don't look back, just walk." Her eyes were wide with fear. I followed her without question. But the moment we stepped out of the pharmacy, something made us stop in our tracks. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The fluorescent lights of Riverside Pharmacy hummed overhead as I stood at the prescription counter, waiting for my blood pressure medication. At 67, I'd grown accustomed to these monthly rituals. The sterile smell of antiseptic, the rustle of paper bags, the pharmacist's practiced smile. My life in Cedar Falls, Montana had settled into a comfortable rhythm after Harold passed 3 years ago, leaving me the farmhouse we'd built together over 4 decades of marriage. I was reading the warning labels on a bottle of calcium supplements when I felt it. A small hand gripping mine with unexpected urgency. "Grandma, we need to pretend we're leaving together. I'll explain later." I looked down at my granddaughter Kathy, 16 years old with her father's dark hair and my late husband's green eyes. But those eyes now held something I'd never seen before. Raw fear. "Kathy, sweetheart, what's—" "Please," she whispered, her fingers tightening around mine. "They're watching us from the parking lot." My heart lurched. I glanced toward the glass storefront, but the afternoon glare made it impossible to see clearly into the lot. Kathy tugged me gently away from the counter, toward the pharmacy's back section where the greeting cards and seasonal items created a maze of aisles. "Who's watching us?" I kept my voice low, matching her tone. "Dad and Mom. They don't know I saw them, but they followed us here." Kathy's breath came quick and shallow. "Grandma, I need to tell you something, but not here. Not where they might see us talking." 20 minutes later, we sat in my old Ford pickup at the far end of Riverside Park, surrounded by cottonwood trees that filtered the Montana sun into dancing shadows. Kathy had insisted we take a roundabout route, checking the rearview mirror constantly. I'd thought she was being dramatic until I caught the flash of a silver sedan, my son Timothy's car, making the same unusual turns we did. "Start from the beginning," I said, turning to face her fully. Kathy pulled out her phone with trembling hands. 2 weeks ago, I couldn't sleep. I came downstairs for water and heard Mom and Dad in his office. The door was cracked open. She scrolled through her phone. I recorded some of it. I didn't know what else to do. She pressed play, and my son's voice filled the truck cabin. "Transfer won't work if she's deemed competent. Doctor Morrison said the evaluation has to show cognitive decline." My daughter-in-law Roxanne's response was sharp, impatient. "Then we need documentation. Missed appointments, confusion, anything that builds the pattern. Your sister won't fight us if we have medical evidence. Judy will ask questions." "Judy is in Seattle. By the time she figures out what's happening, the property will already be in the trust. Our trust. Your mother signed that power of attorney last year. She doesn't even remember doing it." The recording ended. I sat frozen, my hands gripping the steering wheel though the engine was off. "There's more," Kathy said quietly. "I found papers in Dad's office. Legal documents about the farm. Grandma, they're trying to take your house." The world tilted. "That's not possible. I never signed any power of attorney." "Are you sure?" Kathy's voice was gentle, cautious. "Mom said something about you signing papers at the hospital when Grandpa died. She said you were emotionally vulnerable and didn't understand what you were agreeing to." My mind raced back 3 years. Those terrible weeks after Harold's heart attack, the funeral arrangements, the medical bills, the endless paperwork. Timothy had been so helpful, bringing documents to the house, explaining what needed my signature. I'd been drowning in grief, barely able to focus. Had I signed something I shouldn't have? "I need to see those papers," I said. I took pictures. Kathy swiped through her phone, showing me images of legal documents. My signature appeared at the bottom of a durable power of attorney form, dated 3 weeks after Harold's funeral. The document gave Timothy complete authority over my financial and medical decisions in the event of incapacity or cognitive impairment. "But I'm not incapacitated," I protested. "I manage my own accounts, pay my bills, drive." "That's why they need the medical evaluation," Kathy interrupted. "I heard them on the phone with someone called Dr. Morrison. They're setting up an appointment for you, some kind of cognitive assessment. But Grandma, she leaned closer, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. I think they're going to fake the results. The pharmacy incident suddenly made sense. They were watching to see if you'd tell me. Kathy nodded. Mom's been monitoring my phone. I had to delete the recording and re-download it from a cloud account she doesn't know about. She tracks my location, reads my messages. When I saw the pharmacy on my schedule this morning, you'd told me last week you'd be picking up prescriptions today. I knew it was my only chance to warn you in person. Your own mother is spying on you? She says it's for my safety, but... Kathy's voice cracked. Grandma, I'm scared. Dad's not the same anymore. He does whatever Mom tells him. And the way they talk about you when they think I'm not listening? Like you're already gone. Like the farm is already theirs. I pulled Kathy into a hug, feeling her shake against me. My son, my Timothy, who I'd raised to value honesty and family above all else. How had this happened? Listen to me, I said firmly. We're going to fix this, but I need you to act normal at home. Can you do that? Kathy pulled back, wiping her eyes. What are you going to do? First, I'm calling my daughter. Then I'm finding a lawyer. I started the truck. Your mother's tracking your location, you said? Yes. Then we need to get you home before they get suspicious. We were at the pharmacy, then came here to talk about your college applications. That's our story. Nothing about the recording or the papers. As I drove Kathy back toward her house on the east side of Cedar Falls, my mind cataloged everything I knew. Timothy and Roxanne had moved back to Montana 5 years ago, when Timothy's tech startup failed in California. They'd been living in the old guest house on my property, supposedly temporarily while they got back on their feet. The guest house sat on 5 acres that connected to the main farmhouse property, 320 acres of prime Montana land that had been in Harold's family for 3 generations. Land that was now worth millions, thanks to the new highway development planned for next spring. Grandma, there's something else. Kathy's voice pulled me from my thoughts. We were stopped at a red light 2 blocks from her house. I heard Mom on the phone with someone about Aunt Judy. She said they needed to handle the sister situation before she came for Thanksgiving. Judy, my daughter, the attorney, who lived in Seattle with her husband and twin boys. Judy, who'd always been protective of me, who called twice a week and visited every holiday. When was this conversation? I asked. Yesterday. Mom said. Kathy hesitated. She said Aunt Judy was too smart and that they needed everything finalized before she could interfere. The light turned green. I drove the last 2 blocks in silence, pulling up to the curb in front of Timothy's house. A modern construction that had always seemed too large, too ostentatious for Cedar Falls. Through the front window, I could see Roxanne moving in the kitchen. Remember, I told Kathy, you came to the pharmacy to meet me. We talked about college, everything's normal. Kathy nodded, but her hand lingered on the door handle. Grandma, be careful. I don't think they'll stop if they know you're onto them. She got out, and I watched her walk up the driveway, shoulders squared, phone already out. The picture of a normal teenager coming home. The front door opened before she reached it. Roxanne stood there, perfectly styled in yoga wear despite it being mid-afternoon, her expression a practiced mix of concern and warmth. There you are. I was getting worried. Roxanne's eyes flicked to my truck, her smile never wavering. She raised a hand in a wave. I waved back, my stomach churning. As I drove away, I checked my rearview mirror. Roxanne had pulled Kathy inside, the door already closing. But in that brief moment before it shut, I saw Roxanne's expression change. The warmth draining away, replaced by something cold and calculating. My phone rang. Timothy's number flashed on the screen. Hi, Mom. Roxanne just told me she saw you drop Kathy off. Everything okay? His voice sounded normal, concerned, loving. The same voice that had called me every Sunday since Harold died. The same son who'd held my hand at the funeral. Everything's fine, I said, keeping my tone light. We ran into each other at the pharmacy and talked about her college essays. She's very excited about her applications. That's great. Hey, speaking of which, I was going to call you anyway. Dr. Morrison's office called. They had a cancellation next Tuesday for that wellness checkup we discussed. Would that work for you? We'd never discussed any wellness checkup. What time? I asked, playing along. 10 in the morning. It's just routine stuff. Memory screening, cognitive function, standard elderly care protocol. Nothing to worry about. Elderly care protocol. The words landed like stones. Sure, I said. I'll be there. Perfect. I'll pick you up at 9:30. Love you, Mom. Love you too. I ended the call and immediately dialed Judy in Seattle. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. A text came through from Judy. In meetings all day, call you tonight? Except Judy never texted during work hours unless it was urgent. She'd always been adamant about keeping her phone on for family emergencies. I pulled into a gas station parking lot and sat there, engine idling, piecing it together. They were isolating me, monitoring Kathy, setting up the medical evaluation, and they had a timeline. Before Thanksgiving? Before Judy came home. I had 8 days. Opening my glove compartment, I pulled out the small leather address book Harold had given me decades ago. Most people used phones now, but I'd kept the book, updating it faithfully. I found the entry I needed. Scott King, attorney at law. Scott had handled Harold's estate, had known our family for 30 years. But when I called, a pleasant automated voice informed me that Scott King had retired 6 months ago, and his practice had been absorbed by Morrison and Associates. Morrison, the same name as the doctor. My hands started shaking. I sat in that parking lot as the sun began its descent toward the mountains, and I realized something that made my blood run cold. This wasn't a simple case of greedy relatives. This was a coordinated effort. They had a doctor, a lawyer, possibly more people I didn't know about yet, and they'd been planning this for a very, very long time. I drove home as dusk painted the sky purple and gold. The farmhouse stood where it always had, solid and familiar against the vast Montana horizon. Harold's workshop, the barn we'd restored together, the fields where we'd planned to plant apple trees before he died. Inside, I locked the door, something I rarely did, and went straight to Harold's old office. If Timothy had power of attorney papers, I needed to find my copies. I needed to understand exactly what I'd signed. 3 hours later, I sat surrounded by file boxes and folders. I'd found mortgage documents, tax records, insurance policies, but no power of attorney paperwork. Then I remembered. The hospital. After Harold died, they'd given me a folder of documents to take home. I'd put it somewhere safe, somewhere I'd remember. The cedar chest in the bedroom. Harold's chest, where we'd kept our most important papers. I opened it and found the folder immediately. Inside, medical bills, death certificate, funeral home receipts. And at the bottom, a thick envelope marked, "Legal documents, do not discard." I opened it with trembling fingers. The power of attorney was there, my signature clear at the bottom. But as I read through it carefully, really read it for the first time, I saw something that made my breath catch. There were 2 signatures required, mine and a witness. The witness signature belonged to Dr. Patricia Morrison. Not only had they planned this for years, they'd had their medical evaluator in place from the very beginning, ready to testify that I'd been of sound mind when I signed away my rights, and presumably ready to testify later that I was no longer competent. I was still sitting there, the document in my hands, when I heard it, the sound of a car engine idling outside my house. I went to the window and peered through the curtains. Timothy's silver sedan sat at the end of my driveway, headlights off, just watching, just waiting. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the old farmhouse made me jump. Every shadow outside my window seemed threatening. Timothy's car had stayed in my driveway for 20 minutes before finally pulling away, and I'd watched from behind the curtains, my heart hammering against my ribs. At 5 in the morning, I gave up on sleep entirely. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with Harold's laptop, the one Timothy had set up for me after the funeral, insisting I needed to stay connected. Now I wondered what else he'd installed on it. Were they monitoring my emails, tracking my searches? I left the laptop closed and used my old flip phone instead, the one I'd kept as a backup. I called Judy again. Still voicemail. By 7, I'd made a decision. I needed help, and I needed it from someone outside the family, someone Timothy and Roxanne couldn't have gotten to yet. I drove into town as the sun rose over the mountains, painting Cedar Falls in shades of amber and rose. The streets were quiet, most shops still closed. I parked in front of the Cedar Falls Public Library, waiting for it to open at 8. Martha Green, the head librarian, had been my friend for 20 years. More importantly, she was fiercely independent and had never liked Roxanne. "Helen!" Martha unlocked the library door and ushered me inside. "You're here early. Everything all right?" "I need to use a computer," I said quietly. "One that's not connected to my home network. And Martha, I need you to not tell anyone I was here." Her expression shifted from cheerful to concerned. "What's going on?" I told her everything. Kathy's recording, the power of attorney, the coordinated scheme. Martha listened without interrupting, her face growing darker with each revelation. "That snake?" she hissed when I finished. "I always knew Roxanne was after something. But Timothy, I can't believe he'd do this to you. I need to reach Judy. My calls aren't going through, and I think they might have done something to redirect them." Martha led me to a computer in the back office, away from the main floor. "Use this one. It's on a separate network we use for administrative work. And Helen," she gripped my shoulder, "you call me if you need anything, day or night. I mean it." I logged into an old email account I rarely used, one Timothy didn't know about. I sent Judy a carefully worded message. "Need to talk urgently. Family matter. Don't call my regular number. Use Martha's library line." I included the number. Then I searched for attorneys in the surrounding counties, avoiding anyone in Cedar Falls who might have connections to Morrison and Associates. I found a firm in Helena, 90 miles away, Blackwell and Price, specializing in elder law and estate litigation. I called from Martha's office phone. "Blackwell and Price, how may I direct your call?" "I need to speak with an attorney about a power of attorney dispute. It's urgent." "One moment, please." The hold music seemed to last forever. Then a woman's voice, crisp and professional. "This is Aretha Herman. I understand you have a POA issue?" I explained the situation as succinctly as possible. When I finished, there was a long pause. "Mrs. Crane, what you're describing is elder financial abuse. It's more common than people realize, and yes, family members are often the perpetrators." Her voice was steady, reassuring. "The good news is that a power of attorney can be revoked at any time, as long as you're mentally competent. The bad news is that if they're planning a competency evaluation, we need to act fast. The appointment is Tuesday, 4 days from now. Then we need to file a revocation document before then. Can you come to Helena today?" I glanced at Martha, who nodded encouragingly. "Yes." "What time?" 2 o'clock. Bring any documents you have, the original POA, property deeds, financial statements, anything that shows your current mental capacity. Bank records showing you're managing your own affairs are particularly helpful." After I hung up, Martha squeezed my hand. "You're doing the right thing." "I hope so." I checked the time. "I should go home and gather those documents." "Helen, wait." Martha's voice dropped. "If they're watching you this closely, they'll notice if you drive to Helena. It's not exactly a quick trip to the grocery store." She was right. Timothy would see the mileage on my truck. Or worse, follow me. "Take my car," Martha said. "I'll park yours behind the library. If anyone asks, you stopped by to return some books, and I'll say you left hours ago. My Subaru is plain enough that they won't recognize it." I wanted to refuse. I'd already involved her too much, but the logic was sound. "Thank you. And Helen, don't go home alone to get those documents. What if they're there, waiting?" Another good point. I called the house from Martha's phone. No answer. I tried Timothy's cell. "Hey, Mom." He sounded chipper, unsuspicious. "What's up?" "I was calling to see if you wanted to come over for breakfast. I'm making pancakes." "Wish I could, but I'm at the office all morning. Big project deadline. Rain check?" "Of course. Is Roxanne around?" I wanted to ask her about Kathy's college essay. "She's at her yoga class until 11. Why, is something wrong?" No, just grandma stuff. I'll call her later." We said goodbye, and I felt sick. I'd just lied to my son. But he'd lied to me first, I reminded myself. He'd been lying for 3 years. Martha drove me home in her Subaru, staying in the car while I went inside. The house felt different now, violated somehow, even though nothing had been touched. I gathered documents quickly. The power of attorney, property deeds, 3 months of bank statements showing regular bill payments and balanced accounts, even my most recent grocery receipts. Anything that proved I was managing my own life competently. In Harold's office, I found something else. A file labeled Property Survey, Highway Development. Inside were maps, engineering reports, and a letter from the Montana Department of Transportation dated 6 months ago. They were planning to build an interchange less than 2 miles from my property, which would increase the land value exponentially. Timothy had never mentioned this to me, but the letter was addressed to him as my attorney-in-fact under power of attorney. He'd been using the POA already, receiving communications meant for me, making decisions about my property without my knowledge. I photographed everything with my flip phone's basic camera, then tucked the originals into a canvas bag. As I was leaving, I noticed something odd. Harold's desk drawer, the one where I'd found the highway development file, wasn't closed properly. I always close drawers fully. It was a habit ingrained from years of farm life where loose drawers meant trapped fingers. Someone had been in here. Recently. I checked the rest of the office. Harold's filing cabinet showed similar signs. Folders slightly out of order, papers not quite aligned as I'd left them. They'd searched my house. My hands trembled as I locked the front door. Martha saw my face when I got back to the car. What happened? They've been inside, going through Harold's office. Martha's jaw tightened. Then we definitely need to hurry. The drive to Helena took 2 hours. I spent most of it watching the rearview mirror, convinced every silver sedan was Timothy following us. But the highway remained clear, and by 2 o'clock, I was sitting in Aretha Herman's office, a modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Aretha was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and an air of quiet competence. She reviewed my documents carefully, making notes. "This is good," she said finally. "Your bank records show clear, consistent financial management. You're paying bills on time, maintaining reasonable balances, no signs of confusion or erratic behavior. And these receipts," she smiled slightly. "Most people wouldn't think to bring grocery receipts, but they're actually excellent evidence. They show you're planning meals, managing daily tasks, living independently. So you can help me?" "Absolutely. We'll draft a revocation of power of attorney immediately. You'll sign it, I'll notarize it, and we'll file it with the county clerk today. We'll also send copies via certified mail to your son, Dr. Morrison, and anyone else listed as a recipient in the original document." Relief flooded through me. "What about the evaluation on Tuesday?" "You can still attend if you want, but I'd advise against it. Once the revocation is filed, your son has no legal authority to arrange medical appointments on your behalf. You're under no obligation to submit to an evaluation you didn't personally request. But they already scheduled it. Won't it look suspicious if I don't show up?" Aretha leaned back in her chair. "Mrs. Crane, let me be blunt. Based on what you've told me, your son and daughter-in-law are committing financial elder abuse. They've accessed your property without permission, they're planning to use fraudulent medical testimony to declare you incompetent, and they're trying to steal land worth millions. Looking suspicious to them should be the least of your concerns." She was right, but decades of trying to keep peace in my family made it hard to accept. What if this destroys my relationship with my son? What if doing nothing destroys your entire life? The words hung in the air. After a moment, Aretha's expression softened. "I know this is hard. Family betrayal always is. But you have rights, Mrs. Crane. You have agency, and you have the law on your side." We spent the next 2 hours drafting documents. Aretha was thorough, explaining each section, making sure I understood exactly what I was signing. The revocation was clear and unambiguous. Timothy no longer had any authority over my medical, financial, or personal decisions. "One more thing," Aretha said as we finished. "I'd recommend changing your locks and updating your will. If your son has been in your house without permission, he may have made copies of your keys. I'll call a locksmith tomorrow." "Good. And Mrs. Crane?" Aretha walked me to the door. Document everything from now on. Keep a journal of any contact with your son or daughter-in-law. If they show up at your house, note the date and time. If they call, write down what was said. If this escalates to court, and it might, that documentation will be invaluable. Martha and I started the drive back to Cedar Falls around 5. We were 20 minutes from town when my flip phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Grandma, it's me, Kathy. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm calling from my friend's phone. You need to know, Dad and Mom just got a call. They're furious. Something about papers from Helena. They know, Grandma. They know you went to a lawyer. My stomach dropped. How is that possible? We just filed. I don't know, but Mom's screaming about that witch interfering, and Dad's on the phone with someone named Morrison. They're planning something for tonight. Coming to your house. Kathy, are you safe? I'm at soccer practice. I'll be fine, but Grandma, please don't be alone tonight. They were talking about making you sign something, and Mom said they'd do whatever it takes to fix this before Judy finds out. The line went dead. Martha had heard enough of the conversation to understand. You're not going home. You're staying with me tonight. Martha, I can't drag you into... Too late. I'm already in it. She made a sharp turn onto a side road. We're going to the police station. Right now. And tell them what? That my son might come to my house? They'll say it's a civil matter. Then what do you suggest? I thought about it, my mind racing. Take me home, but stay with me. If they show up and we're both there, witnesses present, they can't force me to do anything. Helen, I won't be driven out of my own home, Martha. Harold and I built that house with our own hands. I'm not running. We pulled into my driveway just as the sun was setting. The house looked peaceful, innocent, but I felt like I was walking into a trap. Inside, I locked the doors and closed all the curtains. Martha made tea while I checked every room, making sure we were alone. Then we sat in the living room waiting. At 8 o'clock, headlights swept across the front windows. A car door slammed. Then another. Multiple people, Martha whispered. The doorbell rang. Once, twice. Then steady knocking. Mom, I know you're in there. We need to talk, please. Timothy's voice muffled through the door. I looked at Martha. She nodded. I opened the door, keeping the chain lock engaged. Timothy stood on my porch, looking haggard. Behind him, Roxanne wore an expression of cold fury. And behind them both, another figure emerged from the shadows, an older woman in professional attire, carrying a leather briefcase. Mrs. Crane? The woman said, her voice clinical and detached. I'm Dr. Patricia Morrison. I think it's time we had a conversation about your mental health. They'd brought the doctor. Tonight. To my house. And from the determined look on their faces, they weren't planning to leave until they got what they came for. I stared at Dr. Morrison through the narrow gap allowed by the chain lock. She was exactly what I'd imagined. Mid-50s, tailored suit, an expression that suggested she'd done this before. Many times. It's after 8 o'clock at night, doctor, I said, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. This is hardly appropriate for a medical consultation. Your son is concerned about your recent behavior, Dr. Morrison replied smoothly. Making impulsive decisions, driving long distances without informing family, paranoid accusations. These are all red flags for cognitive decline in elderly patients. I'm 67, not senile, and I don't recall requesting your services. Timothy stepped forward. Mom, please. We're worried about you. You went to Helena today without telling anyone. You hired a lawyer to... He faltered, emotion cracking his rehearsed speech. To revoke papers you don't even understand. Can't you see how concerning that is? What I see, I said carefully, is 3 people showing up at my home uninvited, after dark, to pressure me into something I don't want. That's what's concerning. Roxanne's mask slipped. You don't want it because you're confused, Helen. You signed that power of attorney for a reason. You were falling apart after Harold died. You needed help. I needed support. Not to be robbed. Robbed? Roxanne's laugh was sharp, brittle. Is that what your fancy Helena lawyer told you? That we're stealing from you? We've been taking care of you, managing your affairs, protecting you. From what? From making my own decisions? From yourself. The words exploded from her. You're alone in this huge house, isolated, probably not eating properly or taking your medications correctly. Kathy told us you seemed confused at the pharmacy yesterday, asking her the same questions repeatedly. That's a lie. The words came from behind me. Martha stepped into view, her presence solid and reassuring. I'm Martha Green, head librarian and Helen's friend for 20 years. I saw her this morning at the library. She was perfectly lucid, organized, and frankly, sharper than most people half her age. So perhaps you should reconsider who's confused here. Dr. Morrison's eyes narrowed. And you are? A witness to this entire conversation. Martha held up her phone, which I'm recording, by the way, just so we're all clear about what's being said and who's saying it. Timothy's face paled. Martha, this is a family matter. A family matter that involves fraudulent medical evaluations and financial exploitation. I think the authorities might disagree about it being private. Dr. Morrison adjusted her briefcase, her professional veneer cracking slightly. Mrs. Crane, if you refuse a basic cognitive screening, it only reinforces concerns about your judgment. A competent person would have no reason to avoid medical evaluation. Unless that evaluation is a setup, I countered. Tell me, doctor, did you witness my signature on the original power of attorney 3 years ago? A pause. Too long. Yes. I was asked to verify your mental state at the time. By whom? Your son contacted me. He was concerned about your emotional state following your husband's death. And how much did he pay you for that verification? Her expression hardened. I don't appreciate what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. You signed as a witness on documents that gave my son control over my assets. Now you're here to provide medical testimony that would solidify that control permanently. The conflict of interest is rather obvious, don't you think? Mom, that's enough. Timothy's voice had gone cold. Dr. Morrison is a respected physician. You're making wild accusations based on… what? Some lawyer who's probably just after your money themselves? Aretha Herman is a respected elder law attorney with a spotless record. I researched her thoroughly before retaining her services. Unlike some people, I don't make decisions based on convenience and greed. Greed? Timothy's face flushed red. I've spent 3 years managing your affairs, dealing with the farm, the taxes, the maintenance. Affairs I never asked you to manage. A farm I'm perfectly capable of maintaining myself. Are you? Roxanne stepped closer to the door, her voice dropping to something almost dangerous. Because from where I'm standing, you've been slipping for years. We've all seen it. The repeated stories, the missed appointments, the confusion about dates. Your own granddaughter is worried about you. Leave Kathy out of this. Why? Because she told you things you weren't supposed to know? Roxanne's smile was cruel. Kathy has problems of her own, Helen. She's been acting out, lying, making up stories for attention. Her therapist says it's classic teenage rebellion combined with grief over losing her grandfather. We can't trust everything she says. The ground shifted beneath me. Kathy doesn't have a therapist. She does now. We started sessions 3 weeks ago after we found concerning content on her phone. Paranoid fantasies about her parents, accusations of surveillance, delusional thinking. Stop. My hands were shaking. You're building a case against your own daughter? Making her seem unstable so no one believes her if she talks? We're getting her help, Timothy said quietly. Because she needs it. Just like you need help, Mom. Why can't you see we're trying to protect this family? By destroying it? Martha's hand landed on my shoulder, warm and grounding. Helen, you don't have to engage with this. They have no legal right to be here. You can ask them to leave. Dr. Morrison pulled a document from her briefcase. Actually, under the current power of attorney, which hasn't been officially revoked until the county processes the paperwork, Timothy has the authority to make medical decisions for his mother, including arranging emergency psychiatric evaluations if he believes she's a danger to herself. The words fell like stones into dark water. You're threatening to have me committed? I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. We're trying to help you, Timothy said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. If you'd just agree to a simple evaluation? No. I started to close the door. Timothy's hand shot out, stopping it. Mom, wait. Please. Just, let's talk. Really talk. Without the lawyer, without Martha, just family. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. He'd lost weight since moving back to Montana. Stress lines bracketed his mouth. His eyes, Harold's eyes, were red-rimmed and desperate. For a moment I wavered. This was my child. The boy I'd raised, taught to ride a bike, sent off to college with care packages and encouragement. Could I be wrong about him? Could this really be about concern rather than greed? Then I noticed his hand, still gripping the doorframe. On his wrist, barely visible beneath his sleeve, was a watch I recognized. Harold's watch. The vintage Rolex his grandfather had given him. The one that should have been in my jewelry box with Harold's other valuables. When did you take your father's watch? I asked quietly. Timothy's hand dropped. What? Harold's watch. The Rolex. When did you go through my jewelry box? Dad wanted me to have it. He told me before he died. Your father died of a sudden heart attack. There was no before. No final wishes except the will he'd written years earlier, leaving everything to me. I looked past him to Roxanne, who was suddenly very interested in her phone. How long have you been taking things from my house? We haven't taken anything, Roxanne said, but her voice lacked conviction. The silver picture frames from the mantel, Harold's coin collection from his office, my mother's pearl necklace. Each item clicked into place as I spoke. I thought I'd misplaced them, that my memory was failing, but it was you, making me doubt myself while you emptied my house piece by piece. Those were family heirlooms, Timothy protested. They should be passed down. After I'm dead. That's how inheritance works, Timothy. Unless you couldn't wait that long? Martha's phone chimed. She glanced at it, and her expression changed. Helen, you need to see this. She turned the phone toward me. An email, forwarded from her library account. From Judy. Got your message. Tried calling you all week, but calls were redirected to Timothy's phone. Didn't realize until I called the house from my work line and got a different number. I'm booking a flight to Montana tonight. Whatever's happening, you're not alone. Don't sign anything else. Judy. Redirected calls. They hadn't just been monitoring me. They'd been actively blocking my communication with my daughter. You intercepted my calls to Judy. I looked at Timothy, and something fundamental broke inside me. Your own sister. You kept her away from me. We didn't want her interfering. Timothy caught himself, but it was too late. Interfering with what? Your plan to steal my property? To have me declared incompetent before she could stop you? Dr. Morrison cleared her throat. Mrs. Crane, this emotional outburst is actually indicative of, get off my property. I said it quietly, with absolute finality. All of you, now. Mom? I said leave. You're trespassing. If you're not gone in 30 seconds, Martha calls the police. Roxanne grabbed Timothy's arm. Let's go. She's not going to listen to reason. But Timothy didn't move. He stood there, his face crumpling, and for a moment he looked like the boy who'd cried when his goldfish died, who'd held my hand during thunderstorms. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry, Mom. It wasn't supposed to be like this. She said it would be simple, that you'd never have to know, that we were just... His voice broke. I'm drowning, Mom. The business, the debt. We're losing everything, and the farm is worth so much. And Roxanne said, Timothy, shut up. Roxanne's voice cracked like a whip. Don't say another word. But he kept talking, the words tumbling out like a confession. We owe $300,000. The IRS, the failed investments, the house, it's all mortgaged. We were going to lose everything. And then the highway development was announced, and Roxanne said if we could just control the property for a few years, sell it at the right time. You idiot. Roxanne turned on him, her carefully constructed facade shattering. We had this under control. Everything was in place. And you just... She looked at me, and her expression was pure venom. This isn't over, Helen. That revocation won't be processed for days. Plenty of time for accidents to happen. For elderly women living alone to fall downstairs. To forget to turn off the stove. To have unfortunate incidents that necessitate hospitalization and proper evaluation. Are you threatening my client? A new voice cut through the night. A woman emerged from a sedan I hadn't noticed pulling up. Aretha Herman, my attorney, in jeans and a jacket, looking nothing like the professional I'd met in Helena. Because I recorded that entire threat, along with your admission of financial exploitation and conspiracy to commit fraud. Behind her, a police cruiser pulled into the driveway, lights flashing. I took the liberty of calling ahead, Aretha said calmly. The Cedar Falls police take elder abuse very seriously, especially when there's evidence of breaking and entering, theft, and conspiracy. Sheriff Tom Reeves stepped out of the cruiser. I'd known Tom since he was a deputy, 20 years ago. His father had been Harold's friend. Evening, Helen. Folks. He nodded to Timothy and Roxanne. I'm going to need you all to come down to the station. We've got some questions about allegations of financial exploitation and theft. Dr. Morrison backed away quickly. I was just here for a medical consultation. I'm not involved in any... Ma'am, you signed as a witness on legal documents and were about to conduct a fraudulent evaluation. You're very much involved. Tom gestured to his deputy. Let's start with statements from everyone. Mrs. Crane, Ms. Green, you'll need to come too. Ms. Blackwell says you've got evidence? Recordings, documents, and testimony from the granddaughter, Aretha confirmed. Enough for multiple charges. I watched as they led Timothy away. He looked back once, his face a mask of anguish and shame. Roxanne went silently, her jaw set, already planning her next move. Inside the police station, under fluorescent lights that made everything surreal, I gave my statement. Martha gave hers. Aretha presented the evidence methodically, professionally. By midnight, Timothy and Roxanne had been formally charged with attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person. Dr. Morrison was being investigated by the medical board for ethical violations. They were released on bail, but restraining orders were immediately put in place. Tom drove me home as dawn began to lighten the sky. Your daughter Judy called the station, he said. She'll be here by this afternoon. Sounded pretty fierce. That's Judy. Helen. Tom pulled into my driveway. I'm sorry. About Timothy. I know this has to hurt. It does. But not as much as losing myself would have. Inside the house, Martha had made coffee and was sitting at my kitchen table like she belonged there. Maybe she did now. Crisis had a way of revealing who your real family was. My phone, my regular phone, rang. Kathy's number. Grandma? Her voice was thick with tears. The police came. They took Mom and Dad away. They're saying things. Terrible things about fraud and theft and... Is it true? Did they really try to steal from you? Yes, sweetheart. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I heard them fighting after the police left. Mom was screaming at Dad that it was all his fault for talking, that they should have just... She sobbed. Grandma. Mom said they were going to put me in a psychiatric facility if I kept making trouble. She said I was unstable, that I needed intensive treatment away from bad influences, meaning you. My blood ran cold. Kathy, listen to me. You're not going anywhere. Your Aunt Judy is flying in today. We're going to sort this out. Can I come stay with you? Please? I don't want to be here when they come back. I'm scared. I'm coming to get you right now. Pack a bag. Martha stood up. I'll drive. You've been up all night. 20 minutes later, Kathy was in my guest room, finally sleeping after hours of tears and questions. Martha had gone home to rest, promising to return later. I sat in Harold's office, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold, and thought about everything that had happened in the last 48 hours. My son had betrayed me. My daughter-in-law had plotted to steal everything I owned. They'd manipulated their own daughter, stolen from my home, and tried to have me declared incompetent. But I'd fought back. I'd won. And yet, sitting there in the quiet morning light, I felt no triumph. Only a deep, aching sadness for the family we used to be, and the knowledge that nothing would ever be the same again. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. This isn't over, Helen. You've made a powerful enemy. Watch your back. I stared at the message, my victory suddenly feeling very fragile indeed. Someone was still out there, Someone who wasn't finished with me yet. And I had a terrible suspicion about who it might be. Judy arrived at 3 in the afternoon, bursting through my front door like a storm. At 42, my daughter had inherited Harold's determination and my strategic mind, a combination that had made her one of Seattle's most formidable trial attorneys. "Mom!" She wrapped me in a fierce hug, then held me at arm's length, examining me like I might shatter. "I can't believe Timothy actually tried." Her voice cracked, and I saw tears she was too professional to let fall. "I'm so sorry I didn't know sooner." "You couldn't have known. They made sure of that." Kathy emerged from the guest room, hesitant. Judy's expression softened instantly. "Kathy, sweetheart, come here." My granddaughter flew into her aunt's arms, and they stood there in the hallway, holding each other. The family Timothy and Roxanne had tried to fracture, already beginning to heal. But healing would have to wait. "We need to talk strategy," Judy said once we were settled at the kitchen table with coffee. She'd already spread legal pads and her laptop across the surface, every inch the attorney. "The criminal charges against Timothy and Roxanne will take months to resolve. In the meantime, we need to protect you from further attacks." "Attacks?" Kathy looked up, alarmed. "What do you mean?" Judy glanced at me, and I pulled out my phone, showing them the threatening text. "This came this morning. Unknown number." Judy's jaw tightened. "Did you report it to Sheriff Reeves?" "Not yet. I wasn't sure if I was being paranoid." "Mom, after everything that's happened, paranoid is the appropriate response." Judy photographed the text with her phone. "I'm forwarding this to Tom immediately. This could be a bail violation. If it came from Roxanne or Timothy, they'll be back in custody." But even as she said it, I shook my head. "It's not them. The wording is too careful. Whoever sent this knows how to stay on the legal edge." "Then who?" "I don't know. But I think there's more to this than we've discovered." Judy made the call to Tom anyway, then turned her attention to the documents I'd gathered. She spent an hour reviewing everything: the power of attorney, the highway development papers, my financial records. Her expression grew darker with each page. "Mom, this is worse than I thought. Look at this." She turned her laptop toward me, showing a property transfer document dated 6 weeks ago. Timothy didn't just have power of attorney, he filed preliminary paperwork to transfer the farm into a family trust, with himself and Roxanne as trustees. My stomach dropped. "That's not possible. I never agreed to that." He used the POA to initiate it. The transfer wasn't finalized, probably because he needed additional documentation, but if he'd gotten you declared incompetent before I found out. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. They would have owned the farm outright, I whispered. Effectively, yes. And once the highway interchange was built, they could have sold it for— Judy pulled up a real estate analysis. Conservatively, $4 to $6 million. Kathy gasped. $6 million? The property has frontage on what will become a major commercial corridor. With the right development, it could be worth even more. Judy closed the laptop. This wasn't just about desperation, Mom. This was calculated, long-term theft. A knock at the door made us all jump. Through the window, I saw Tom Reeves's cruiser. "Probably following up on the text," Judy said. But her hand moved instinctively toward her phone. Tom wasn't alone. He'd brought Deputy Maria Santos, a young officer I'd met a few times at community events. Both their expressions were grim. "Helen, Judy." Tom removed his hat. "We need to talk about something that came up during processing last night." "What is it?" Judy had shifted into attorney mode, standing slightly in front of me. "Roxanne made a deal. She's providing evidence against Timothy in exchange for reduced charges." Tom's weathered face showed regret. "She claims Timothy was the mastermind, that she was coerced, that she has documentation proving he'd been planning this for years." "That's absurd," I said. "We heard her threaten me directly." "I know. And we have that recording. But Roxanne's smart. She's got a lawyer from Billings, someone with connections. They're arguing that she was under psychological duress, that Timothy manipulated her into participating." Judy's expression hardened. "She's throwing her own husband under the bus to save herself." "It gets worse," Maria said quietly. "She's also filed for emergency custody of Kathy. Claims the home environment is unstable due to Helen's documented mental health issues. and that Kathy needs to be removed from negative family influences. Kathy went pale. She can't do that. She can't make me go back there. She's using the same playbook she tried on Helen, Judy said. Manufactured evidence, false narratives. What documentation does she have? Notes from Kathy's supposed therapist, a Dr. Leonard Crawford. He's written a letter stating Kathy has been exhibiting concerning behaviors and requires intensive family therapy, preferably in a controlled environment. Tom handed Judy a folder. The custody hearing is scheduled for Monday morning. Emergency docket. 3 days away. Judy flipped through the papers, her expression growing colder. This is complete fabrication. Kathy's never seen Dr. Crawford. We can subpoena his records. We tried, Maria interrupted. Dr. Crawford has a private practice in Great Falls. Very exclusive, very expensive. He's claiming doctor-patient confidentiality and says he's been seeing Kathy via telehealth sessions that Roxanne arranged. That's a lie. Kathy's voice rose. I've never talked to any therapist online or otherwise. We believe you, Tom said gently, but proving it in court is another matter. Crawford has session notes, timestamps, even recorded snippets of conversations. With who? Judy demanded. If Kathy wasn't in these sessions, who was? The question hung in the air. Then Kathy's face changed, realization dawning. Mom has a voice recording of me. From when I was reading an essay aloud last month. She said she wanted to save it, that it was sweet. But she recorded like 20 minutes of me talking about school, my feelings, everything. She could have edited that recording, Judy said slowly. Pieced together responses to make it sound like therapy sessions. Crawford might not even know, Maria added. If Roxanne paid him well enough, he could have conducted fake sessions based on edited audio, genuinely believing he was treating a patient. Or he's completely complicit, Tom said. We're investigating, but it'll take time we don't have before Monday. Judy stood abruptly. I need to make some calls. Maria? Tom, thank you for the heads up. We'll see you in court. After they left, Judy paced the kitchen like a caged tiger. This is sophisticated. Too sophisticated for Roxanne to have orchestrated alone. The text, I said suddenly. What if it wasn't from Roxanne or Timothy? What if it was from whoever's really behind this? You think someone else is involved? Think about it. Dr. Morrison was already in place 3 years ago. The power of attorney was perfectly timed to Harold's death. Now there's a therapist in Great Falls with fabricated records ready to go in 48 hours? That level of coordination requires resources and planning beyond what Timothy and Roxanne have. Kathy had been quiet, but now she spoke up. There was someone else. I saw Mom meeting with a man a few weeks ago, at that fancy restaurant in Billings, the Cattlemen's Club. I was with friends, and we walked past. Mom was at a back table with this older guy, really expensive suit. They were looking at papers, and she was laughing, touching his arm. It seemed, I don't know, intimate, but also businesslike. Did you recognize him? No, but he had silver hair, really tan, like he'd been somewhere tropical. And he was wearing this huge ring, like a college ring but fancier. Judy's fingers flew across her laptop keyboard. The Cattlemen's Club has security cameras. If I can get footage from that date... Kathy, when was this? 3 weeks ago, October 20th. Saturday night. I'll get a subpoena. Judy made a note. What else do you remember about this man? He had a briefcase, one of those expensive leather ones with gold clasps, and when they stood up to leave, he handed Mom an envelope. A thick one. Payment, I said. For her part in this. Judy nodded slowly. If we can identify this man and prove he's been funding the scheme, we might be able to show a broader conspiracy. That would undermine Roxanne's credibility and her claim of being coerced. My phone rang. Unknown number again. We all stared at it. Answer it, Judy said, starting a recording app on her own phone. Put it on speaker, I answered. Hello? Mrs. Crane. The voice was male, older, cultured. I hope you're enjoying your brief victory. I must say you've proven more resourceful than anticipated. Who is this? Someone who's invested considerable time and money into a certain property transaction. Your son and daughter-in-law were supposed to be simple intermediaries. But they've proven disappointingly incompetent. Judy mouthed call Tom while gesturing frantically. You're the one who's been orchestrating this, I said, keeping him talking. Orchestrating is such a harsh word. Let's say I've been facilitating opportunities. The highway development, the property valuation, the legal framework, all of it requires expertise and capital. Your son needed money. I needed access to a very valuable piece of land. It should have been a simple transaction. Except the land isn't yours to sell. A technicality that was being addressed. But now you've complicated matters with lawyers and police. Very inconvenient. His tone remained pleasant, almost amused. So let me be clear, Mrs. Crane. You have until Monday to withdraw your criminal complaints, revoke the restraining orders, and sign revised trust documents transferring the property. In exchange, Kathy's custody hearing disappears. The charges against your son are dropped, and you receive a comfortable retirement fund, say $200,000. And if I refuse, then Kathy's custody hearing proceeds. You'll be subpoenaed to testify, and during that testimony, some very damaging evidence about your mental state will surface. Medical records from 15 years ago, a brief psychiatric hospitalization you've conveniently forgotten, depression, anxiety, possibly early-onset dementia even then, all documented by respected physicians who will testify under oath. My blood ran cold. I was never hospitalized for psychiatric reasons. Are you certain? Memory is such a fragile thing, especially at your age. And medical records can be surprisingly detailed, or surprisingly fabricated, depending on what one needs. His voice hardened. You're a smart woman, Mrs. Crane. Smart enough to know when you're beaten. Sign over the property and everyone gets what they want. Refuse, and I'll destroy not just you, but your entire family. Starting with Kathy. The line went dead. Judy was already on with Tom, relaying everything. Kathy sat frozen at the table, her face ashen. I looked at my granddaughter, then at my daughter. Both of them here because I'd fought back. Both of them now targets because of that fight. Mom, Judy ended her call. Tom's putting a trace on the number, but he says it's probably a burner. We might not be able to identify him through the call. We don't need to. Kathy pulled up something on her phone. I've been thinking about that night at the restaurant. I took a selfie with my friends right outside. We were goofing around trying to look fancy. She zoomed in on the background of the photo, where through the restaurant window, Roxanne could be seen at a table, and across from her, clear in the glass reflection, was the silver-haired man. Can you see the ring? Judy leaned closer. Kathy zoomed further. The image pixelated but remained visible. A large ring with distinctive markings. That's a law school ring, Judy said slowly. Montana State, if I'm reading it right. And that style? It's from the 80s, maybe early 90s. I felt something click in my memory. Let me see that again. I studied the image, and suddenly I knew. The silver hair, the expensive suit, the Montana law degree from the 80s. It was impossible, but I know who he is, I whispered. Stuart Morrison, Dr. Patricia Morrison's ex-husband. He was a real estate developer before he retired. He handled the land deal when the Highway Commission first announced the development plans. Judy's eyes widened. Morrison, like the law firm that absorbed Scott King's practice. Morrison and Associates, Patricia and Stuart Morrison. They're partners, in business and in this scheme. The pieces fell into place. Stuart needed my property for the highway development. Patricia provided the medical documentation to make it legally sound. Timothy and Roxanne were just pawns. And now Stuart's cleaning up loose ends, Judy said grimly. If Timothy and Roxanne go down, the trail leads back to him. But if he can intimidate you into signing over the property voluntarily, he gets what he wants, and there's no crime to investigate. Kathy's voice was small. What are we going to do? I looked at my granddaughter, at the fear in her eyes that no 16-year-old should have to feel. Then I looked at Judy, who'd dropped everything to protect me. And I thought about Harold, about the life we'd built here, about the legacy I'd almost lost. We're going to fight, I said quietly, but not the way they expect. Judy raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Stuart Morrison thinks he's dealing with a frightened old woman who'll fold under pressure. He's wrong. I stood up, my mind already working through the plan. But he doesn't need to know that yet. Judy, how do you feel about your mother making some very bad decisions? A slow smile spread across my daughter's face. I think you're about to be very devious, and I'm here for it. Good. Because by Monday, Stuart Morrison is going to think he's won. I looked at both of them. And that's when we'll destroy him. Kathy's phone chimed. A text from an unknown number. Your grandmother is making a mistake. Tell her to be smart. You don't want to end up in foster care while she's in a psychiatric facility, do you? My granddaughter looked up at me, and I saw not fear now, but determination. Harold's stubbornness, my resilience, all wrapped up in a fierce young woman who'd risked everything to warn me. What do you need me to do, Grandma? I need you to trust me, I said. And I need you to be brave for just a little longer. Can you do that? Kathy nodded. Then let's get to work. Sunday morning, I called Stuart Morrison's number, the one he'd used to threaten me. He answered on the second ring, his voice smug with anticipated victory. Mrs. Crane, I'm pleased you're being reasonable. I want to meet, I said, letting my voice tremble slightly, to discuss terms, but not over the phone. And I want my son there. Whatever happens, he's still my child. A pause. Very well. My office tomorrow at 9, before the custody hearing. I'll be there. I hung up and turned to Judy, who'd been listening on speaker. He bought it. Of course he did. Men like Stuart Morrison always underestimate women over 60. Judy's smile was sharp. Now let's make sure we're ready. We spent the rest of Sunday preparing. Tom Reeves provided everything the police had gathered. Statements, recordings, evidence logs. Aretha Herman drove up from Helena with additional legal ammunition. Martha arrived with something unexpected. Her nephew, who worked in digital forensics for a tech company in Missoula. Kevin can analyze that photo Kathy took, Martha explained. Clean it up, enhance details, make it courtroom ready. Kevin worked magic with the image. By evening, we had a crystal clear photo showing not just Stuart Morrison's face, but readable documents on the table between him and Roxanne, including what appeared to be a property survey of my farm. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Kathy had been quiet most of the day, working on her laptop in the corner. Around 7, she looked up, her expression stunned. Grandma, I think I found something. She turned her screen toward us. I've been going through Mom's cloud storage. She doesn't know I have access. I set up her account years ago and kept the admin password. Look at this. It was an email thread between Roxanne and Stuart Morrison, dating back 2 years. Stuart, Timothy is reluctant. He still believes his mother will leave him the property eventually. We need to accelerate the timeline. Patience, Roxanne. The highway announcement isn't public yet. Once it is, the pressure will motivate him. Everyone has a price. His price is keeping his failed business ventures secret from Helen. She still thinks he's successful. If she knew the truth about the debts, the lawsuits, the bankruptcy, it would destroy him. That's our leverage. There were dozens more. Roxanne discussing how to isolate me from Judy. Stuart providing contacts for Dr. Patricia Morrison. Plans to have me sign documents while emotionally compromised after Harold's death. This is premeditation, Aretha said, reading over my shoulder. Conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, everything. Kathy, can you download all of this? Already done. I've got 2 years of emails, text message backups, even some voice memos where Mom talks about the plan. Judy looked at her niece with newfound respect. How did you even think to look for this? Mom's always been paranoid about losing things. She backs up everything to the cloud automatically. I just had to find where. Kathy's expression was sad. I kept hoping I'd find something that proved she wasn't as bad as I thought. But it's all here. Everything they did to you, Grandma. She planned all of it. I pulled Kathy close. I'm sorry you had to see this. I'm not. You need it to protect yourself. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. So what's the plan for tomorrow? Judy spread documents across the table like battle plans. Here's how this plays. Mom goes to Morrison's office appearing defeated and ready to sign. I'll be there as her attorney, supposedly to review paperwork. Tom and Maria will be on standby outside with a warrant. We just need Stuart to incriminate himself on record. He's not stupid, I said. He won't confess to anything. He doesn't have to confess. He just has to threaten you one more time, on recording, while attempting to coerce you into signing fraudulent documents. That's enough for arrest. Judy held up a small device. You'll wear a wire. The moment he pressures you, makes threats, or references the conspiracy, we have him. What about Roxanne and Timothy? They're both required at the custody hearing at 10, but I've filed a motion to combine proceedings, the criminal case and the custody case. Judge Martinez is sharp. She'll see through the fabricated therapy records, especially with Kathy's testimony and the cloud evidence. Aretha added, I've also filed complaints with the state medical board about both Dr. Morrison and Dr. Crawford. Even if the criminal charges take time, their licenses will be suspended pending investigation. No medical testimony means no competency claims. It was a solid plan. But I couldn't shake the feeling we were missing something. Stuart's been planning this for years, I said slowly. He's not going to collapse because of one recorded conversation. He'll have an exit strategy. Then we make sure he doesn't get the chance to use it, Judy replied. Monday morning arrived cold and gray, fog rolling off the mountains like smoke. I dressed carefully, a simple blouse and slacks, nothing that suggested I was preparing for battle. Just an elderly woman, defeated and ready to surrender. Judy drove us to Billings. Morrison and Associates occupied the top floor of the tallest building downtown, all glass and steel and intimidating wealth. The receptionist barely looked at us as she directed us to the conference room. Stuart Morrison was already there, looking exactly as he had in Kathy's photo. Silver hair, perfectly styled, expensive suit, that distinctive ring catching the light. Next to him sat a younger man in an equally expensive suit, probably his attorney. And across the table, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him, was Timothy. My son wouldn't meet my eyes. His face was gaunt, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept in days. Part of me wanted to reach for him, to comfort him like I had when he was small. But the larger part remembered his betrayal, his weakness, and I kept my hands folded in my lap. Mrs. Crane, thank you for coming. Stuart's smile didn't reach his eyes. And Ms. Crane, I presume? Your reputation precedes you. Mr. Morrison. Judy's voice was cool, professional. I'm here to review whatever documents you're asking my mother to sign. I assume everything is in order? Perfectly in order. Stuart slid a folder across the table. A simple trust transfer. Your mother relinquishes claim to the property. It goes into a family trust managed by Timothy, and everyone moves forward. The criminal charges are dropped. The custody hearing is dismissed, and Mrs. Crane receives a comfortable retirement fund. I opened the folder, pretending to read while the wire Judy had fitted under my blouse recorded everything. The documents were professionally prepared, dense with legal language designed to confuse. Mom, don't. Timothy's voice was barely a whisper. Please, you don't have to do this. I looked at him then, really looked at him, and I saw something I hadn't expected, genuine remorse. But I thought this was what you wanted, I said carefully. It was never what I wanted. It was... He glanced at Stuart, then away. I was desperate. The debt, the shame, everything was falling apart. And Stuart said it would be simple, that you'd never even know, that we were just accelerating an inheritance that would be mine eventually anyway. Timothy, that's enough. Stuart's voice cracked like a whip, but Timothy kept talking, words tumbling out like a dam had burst. He said you were getting old anyway, that you'd probably end up in a nursing home within a few years, that we were just being practical. And Roxanne, she made it sound so reasonable, like we were helping you by taking over management of the property before you couldn't handle it anymore. I said that's enough. Stuart stood, his composure slipping. Timothy, you're not helping yourself. I don't care anymore. Timothy's voice rose. I'm tired of the lies. I'm tired of pretending this was anything other than theft. Mom, he turned to me, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry. I was weak and stupid, and I let them manipulate me, and I almost lost you because of it. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know, I never wanted to hurt you. The younger attorney was trying to calm Stuart, who'd gone red in the face. This meeting is over. Timothy, don't say another word. Why not? What else can they do to me? Timothy laughed bitterly. I'm already facing felony charges. My wife is testifying against me. My daughter won't speak to me. And I betrayed my own mother for money we'll never see because it was all a lie anyway, wasn't it, Stuart? The retirement fund? The dropped charges? None of it was real. Stuart's mask dropped completely. You're a fool, Timothy. A weak, pathetic fool who couldn't even execute a simple property transfer without falling apart. There it is, Judy said quietly, checking her phone. That's acknowledgement of the conspiracy. Stuart's eyes snapped to her. Nothing I said constitutes… Actually, it does. Tom Reeves stepped into the conference room, Maria Santos behind him. Stuart Morrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit elder financial abuse, attempted fraud, and coercion. You have the right to remain silent. This is entrapment. Stuart's attorney jumped up. Any statements made here are inadmissible. Your client called my mother 3 days ago with explicit threats. We have that recording. He also sent text messages threatening my 16-year-old niece. We have those too. This meeting was simply an opportunity for him to incriminate himself further, which he's done beautifully. Judy stood, gathering her documents. Oh, and you should know, Kathy Crane has provided 2 years of email correspondence between your client and Roxanne Crane detailing the entire scheme. You might want to start plea negotiations. As Tom handcuffed Stuart, the man's composure finally shattered. You stupid woman! Do you have any idea what you've done? I have connections. Judges, politicians. People who will make your life miserable for this. Empty threats from a desperate man, I said calmly. I've heard enough of those to last a lifetime. They led Stuart away, still protesting. His attorney followed, already on the phone with what I assumed was a more senior partner. Timothy sat at the conference table, head in his hands. Judy started to pack up, but I touched her arm. Give me a minute with him. She hesitated, then nodded. I'll be right outside. When we were alone, I sat down across from my son. He looked up, his face ravaged by guilt and shame. I don't expect forgiveness, he said again. I wanted you to know the truth. Stuart approached me 3 years ago, right after Dad died. He knew about my debts, my failures. I don't know how, but he knew everything, and he offered a solution. He said the farm was worth millions because of the highway development, that I'd be stupid not to take advantage of it, that you were going to lose the property to taxes anyway. That was a lie. I've never missed a tax payment. I know that now. But I was drowning, Mom. Everything I'd built in California had collapsed. Roxanne was threatening to leave, take Kathy. I felt like such a failure, especially compared to Judy with her successful practice and perfect life. He wiped his eyes. Stuart made it sound like I'd be saving you and myself. And then Roxanne got involved, and it spiraled, and suddenly we were in too deep to back out. You could have talked to me, asked for help. I was ashamed. I'm supposed to be the son who takes care of you, not the one who needs saving. Timothy. I reached across the table and took his hand. He flinched like he didn't deserve the contact. You were my child long before you were my caretaker. I would have helped you. I would have done anything to help you. I know. That's what makes this so much worse. He pulled his hand back. What happens now? You face the consequences of your choices. You accept responsibility. And then, I paused, choosing my words carefully. If you're truly sorry, you help make this right. You testify against Stuart and Roxanne. You provide evidence. You show Kathy that mistakes don't define us, but how we respond to them does. What about us? You and me. I looked at my son, and I saw both the man who'd betrayed me and the boy I'd raised. Forgiveness wouldn't come easily. Trust might never fully return. But he was still my child. I don't know, I said honestly. That depends on you, on whether you're willing to do the hard work of becoming someone worthy of trust again. He nodded slowly. I understand. Tom appeared in the doorway. Timothy, we need you for a statement. Your attorney's waiting downstairs. Timothy stood, then turned back to me. Mom, thank you for not giving up on me completely. I don't deserve it. No, I agreed. You don't. but that's what mothers do. An hour later, we were in Judge Martinez's courtroom for what was supposed to be Kathy's custody hearing. Roxanne sat at the plaintiff's table with her attorney, her expression a careful mask of concern. She'd dressed conservatively, every inch the worried mother. But when Judge Martinez called the case and learned of Stuart Morrison's arrest, and when Judy presented the email evidence Kathy had found, that mask cracked. "Your Honor, those emails are private," Roxanne's attorney began. "Those emails detail a multi-year conspiracy to defraud an elderly woman and falsely imprison a minor in a psychiatric facility." Judge Martinez cut him off. "I've reviewed the evidence Ms. Crane provided, including fabricated therapy records allegedly from Dr. Crawford. Dr. Crawford has already admitted under oath that he never actually spoke with Kathy Crane. He conducted sessions based on edited audio recordings provided by Mrs. Roxanne Crane." Roxanne's face went white. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "Kathy Crane has provided testimony that her mother has been monitoring her communications, threatening her with institutionalization, and using her as a pawn in a property scheme. Mrs. Roxanne Crane, your petition for custody is not only denied, I'm ordering a full investigation into your fitness as a parent. Kathy will remain in her grandmother's care pending resolution of the criminal charges against you." "Your Honor, my daughter needs me." Roxanne started to stand. "Your daughter needs safety and stability, neither of which you've provided. This hearing is adjourned." As we left the courthouse, Kathy walked between Judy and me, each of us holding one of her hands. The fog had burned off. An autumn sun painted Billings in shades of gold. "Is it really over?" Kathy asked quietly. "The legal battle will take time," Judy said. "But the immediate threat? Yes, it's over." I looked at my granddaughter, at the relief in her eyes, and felt something unclench in my chest. We'd won. Not just the property or the legal battles, but something more important. Our family's integrity. Our right to make our own choices. As we drove back to Cedar Falls, my phone rang. Scott King, Harold's old attorney. "Helen, I heard about the arrest. I'm so sorry I couldn't help. Morrison forced me out specifically because I wouldn't cooperate with his schemes. But I wanted you to know, I kept copies of all your original documents. If you need anything at all, I'm here." "Thank you, Scott. That means more than you know." When we got home, Martha was waiting on the porch with coffee and pie, her grandmother's recipe, the one she only made for celebrations. "I heard," she said simply. "Figured you could use some comfort food." Inside my farmhouse, surrounded by women who'd stood by me, my daughter, my granddaughter, my friend, I felt Harold's presence like a warm hand on my shoulder. This house, this land, the life we'd built, it was safe now. But as we sat around the kitchen table, laughing and eating pie and slowly decompressing from the tension, I noticed something. The photo of Harold on the mantel had been moved. Just slightly, but enough that I noticed. I walked over, and behind the frame, I found a small note written in unfamiliar handwriting. "Round one to you, Mrs. Crane. But Morrison wasn't working alone. See you soon." My blood ran cold. I held the note without speaking, reading it 3 times to make sure I understood what I was seeing. Someone had been in my house. While we were at the courthouse, celebrating our victory, someone had walked through my home and left this message. "Mom?" Judy noticed my stillness. "What is it?" I handed her the note. Her expression hardened as she read it, then passed it to Martha, who went pale. "We need to call Tom," Judy said, already reaching for her phone. "Wait." I held up a hand. "Think about it. Morrison's been arrested. Roxanne and Timothy are facing charges. Patricia Morrison is under investigation. But this note says Morrison wasn't working alone, implying someone else, someone we haven't identified yet. Someone who can get into your house," Martha added quietly. Kathy looked around nervously. "Are we safe here?" "I changed the locks after learning about the break-ins," I said. But clearly that wasn't enough. I walked through the house, checking windows, doors, looking for signs of entry. Everything appeared normal until I reached the back door leading to the mudroom. The lock was intact, but there were fresh scratch marks on the frame. Someone with skill had picked it. "Professional," Judy observed, examining the marks. This wasn't Timothy or Roxanne fumbling with a spare key. Tom arrived within 20 minutes, bringing Maria and a crime scene technician. They dusted for prints, photographed everything, bagged the note as evidence. But I could see in Tom's expression that he was worried. "Helen, whoever did this wanted you to know they could get to you," he said quietly while the technician worked. "The note could have been left anywhere, but they put it behind Harold's photo. Something personal, something they knew you'd notice. So, what do we do? For tonight, you don't stay here. Is there somewhere safe you can go?" "They can stay with me," Martha offered immediately. "My house has a security system, and my neighbor's a retired Marine who doesn't sleep much. We'll be fine." But I shook my head. "Running won't solve this. Whoever left that note wants me scared and off balance. I won't give them that satisfaction." "Mom, be reasonable," Judy started. "I am being reasonable. Think about it. Stuart Morrison is in custody, but he's not talking. His attorney has him locked down tight, waiting to see if Timothy's testimony is enough to convict. But if there's another partner, someone with more to lose, they might make a mistake if they think I'm vulnerable." "You want to use yourself as bait," Tom said flatly. "I want to draw them out. Under controlled circumstances with police protection, but yes, I want to know who else is involved in this." Judy looked like she wanted to argue, but she knew me too well. "If we do this, we do it right. Full surveillance, officers watching the house, panic buttons. And the moment anything feels wrong, we pull you out." Agreed. We spent the rest of the evening turning my farmhouse into what Tom called a soft trap. Unmarked cars positioned at intervals down the road. Cameras installed at every entry point. Plainclothes officers in the barn and workshop. If someone came for me, they'd be walking into a carefully prepared net. Kathy stayed with Martha despite her protests. I wanted her safe, far from whatever might happen. By midnight, Judy and I sat in the darkened living room, watching security feeds on a laptop Tom had set up. The house was silent except for the old familiar creaks of settling wood and the distant sound of wind through the cottonwoods. "You know this is crazy, right?" Judy said quietly. "Completely. Dad would have loved it. He always said you had more courage than sense." I smiled, remembering Harold's voice saying exactly that after I'd confronted a bear that wandered too close to our chicken coop. "Your father had enough sense for both of us." "I miss him." "So do I. Every day." I looked at my daughter in the dim light. "Judy, if something happens to me..." "Don't. We're not doing deathbed speeches." "I'm serious. If something happens, the farm goes to you and Kathy equally. Everything's already arranged with Aretha Herman. My will is updated, and there are letters for both of you in the safe deposit box." Judy's eyes glistened. "Mom, and tell Timothy..." I paused, searching for the right words. "Tell him I hope he finds his way back to the person he was meant to be. Tell him I loved him, even at the end. You're going to tell him yourself, because nothing is going to happen." But her hand found mine in the darkness, and we sat there holding on to each other like we had when she was small and afraid of storms. At 2 a.m, the motion sensor on the back porch triggered. Judy tensed, her hand moving to her phone. On the laptop screen, we watched a figure approach the mudroom door, same entry point as before. They moved with practiced efficiency, picking the lock in under 30 seconds. "That's not an amateur," Judy whispered, already texting Tom. The figure entered the mudroom, paused, then moved into the kitchen. I could see them now through the doorway. Average height, dark clothes, ski mask. They carried a small bag, and something about their movements seemed familiar. They walked straight to Harold's office like they knew exactly where they were going. "They're looking for something," I breathed. Judy was on the phone with Tom, relaying positions. "Officers are moving in. 2 minutes." But I was already standing, moving quietly toward the office. Judy grabbed my arm, shaking her head frantically, but I pulled free. Something about this felt wrong. The intruder wasn't stealing. They were searching, urgently, going through drawers with increasing desperation. I flipped on the office light. The intruder spun around, and I found myself face to face with someone I never expected. Patricia Morrison. Dr. Patricia Morrison, who should have been suspended and under investigation, Who should have been lying low, not breaking into my house at 2 in the morning? Looking for something, doctor? She pulled off the ski mask, her professional veneer completely gone. She looked haggard, desperate, 10 years older than when I'd last seen her. Where is it? She demanded. I know Stuart gave it to your husband. Where did Harold hide it? Hide what? Don't play games. The file. The evidence Harold collected about the highway development. Stuart said he had documentation proving the route was changed specifically to benefit certain property owners. If that file surfaces, it doesn't just ruin Stuart, it brings down everyone involved. Senators, developers, DOT officials, people who will do anything to keep that information buried. Understanding crashed over me. That's why you've been so desperate. It's not just about my property. It's about covering up corruption on a massive scale. Your husband was a fool. Stuart offered him money to stay quiet about the route change, told him it would make his land valuable. But Harold started investigating, collecting proof, threatening to go to the authorities. Patricia's hands were shaking. We tried to wait him out, hoping he'd die before causing trouble. And then he had his heart attack, and we thought the problem was solved. Except you never found the file. Stuart tore this house apart 3 years ago. Nothing. We thought maybe Harold had destroyed it or it was lost. But then Timothy mentioned his father kept important documents in multiple locations, and I realized he must have hidden it somewhere else. Somewhere Timothy wouldn't think to look. Behind Patricia, I could see Tom Reeves and 2 officers moving silently through the house, but I kept talking, keeping her attention on me. So you orchestrated all of this, the power of attorney, the competency scheme, getting Timothy and Roxanne involved, just to search for a file? The property was going to be worth millions anyway. Stuart saw an opportunity to solve 2 problems at once. Get rid of the evidence and make a fortune on the land sale. Patricia laughed bitterly. But you had to fight back. You couldn't just be a confused old woman and sign the papers. And now Stuart's arrested. I'm losing my medical license. And the file is still out there somewhere, waiting to destroy us all. Hands where I can see them. Tom's voice was calm but firm. Dr. Morrison, you're under arrest for breaking and entering, attempted burglary. You don't understand, Patricia whirled on him. If that file goes public, it's not just us. There are powerful people who will come after anyone involved. Helen, you're in danger just by association. Your husband knew too much, and now so do you. Actually, I said quietly, I didn't know. Not until just now. But thank you for the confession. Tom was already reading Patricia her rights, but she kept talking, words spilling out in a desperate rush. Stuart has copies of everything. Insurance, he called it. If he goes down, everyone goes down. He has evidence on the senators who approved the route change, the developers who paid bribes, the DOT officials who falsified reports. He'll use it to negotiate a plea deal, and when he does, people will die trying to keep it quiet. Helen, you need to find that file first. Destroy it. It's the only way to keep yourself safe. They led her away, still protesting, still trying to convince me I was in danger. Judy appeared at my side. Did you know about any of this? About Dad investigating corruption? No, but it makes sense. Harold was passionate about protecting Montana land. If he found evidence of route manipulation, I walked to his desk, running my hand over the worn wood. He would have kept records, but where? Martha arrived shortly after, bringing Kathy despite the late hour. My granddaughter ran to me and I held her tight, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and the sweet relief that she was safe. Is it really over now? Kathy asked. I think so. The real players are all in custody. But even as I said it, I wondered about Patricia's warning, about powerful people who wouldn't want their secrets exposed. The next morning, Tom called with news. Stuart Morrison is talking. His attorney negotiated a plea deal. He's giving up everyone involved in the highway corruption scheme. It's bigger than we thought, Helen. State senators, contractors, DOT officials. The investigation is going to take years. And the evidence Harold collected? Stuart claims he doesn't know where it is. Says Harold told him it was somewhere safe, but never specified where. After Tom hung up, I sat in Harold's office thinking. My husband had been a careful man, methodical. If he'd hidden something important, he would have put it somewhere meaningful, somewhere only I would think to look. My eyes fell on the bookshelf, Harold's collection of Montana history books, arranged chronologically. But one was out of order, a book about the Lewis and Clark expedition, sitting among texts about the 1950s. I pulled it down. The pages had been hollowed out, creating a cavity. Inside was a USB drive wrapped in a note written in Harold's handwriting. My darling Helen, if you're reading this, I'm gone and someone has come looking. This drive contains evidence of corruption I stumbled upon, proof that powerful people manipulated public projects for private gain. I couldn't go to the authorities while alive without putting you in danger, but I couldn't destroy the evidence either. The choice of what to do with this is yours. Trust your judgment, as I always have. All my love, Harold. I held the drive, feeling the weight of it, the power to bring down corrupt officials, to expose a conspiracy, but also the power to paint a target on my back. Judy found me there an hour later. Mom, you okay? I showed her the drive and the note. She read it twice, then looked at me. What are you going to do? What Harold trusted me to do. The right thing. I stood up. We're giving this to Tom. Let the authorities handle it properly. And then, I looked around the office at the house Harold and I built. We move forward. Together. 3 months later, the farmhouse felt like home again. The legal proceedings were ongoing. Timothy had pled guilty to reduced charges in exchange for testimony. He was facing probation and community service rather than prison time. Roxanne's trial was still pending, but her attorney was negotiating a plea. Stewart and Patricia Morrison were facing multiple felony counts. The corruption investigation had expanded to include 12 state officials and numerous private contractors. The headlines called it the biggest political scandal in Montana's history. But in my kitchen on a Sunday afternoon, those headlines felt distant. Kathy sat at the table doing homework, officially living with me now with Judy as co-guardian. She'd started seeing a real therapist, one we'd carefully vetted, and was slowly healing from the trauma of the past months. Timothy visited every week, supervised at first, then gradually earning back limited trust. It would be years before our relationship resembled what it once was, if ever. But he was trying, genuinely trying, to become someone worthy of his daughter's respect again. Judy had taken a leave of absence from her Seattle firm and was working remotely from Cedar Falls, unwilling to be far from us after everything that had happened. And Martha, dear Martha, had become such a fixture in our lives that she had her own key and her own chair at the table. Grandma, do you ever regret fighting back? Kathy asked suddenly, looking up from her calculus homework. I mean, everything that happened. It was so scary. Would it have been easier to just give up? I thought about that question seriously. About the fear, the danger, the betrayal. About my son's choices and the fractures in our family that might never fully heal. Easier? Yes. Better? No. I sat down beside her. Kathy, I learned something through all of this. Age doesn't make you helpless. Experience doesn't make you weak. The world wants older women to be quiet, to step aside, to hand over control because they think we're too fragile or confused to handle our own lives. But that's not true. You were amazing, Kathy said softly. The way you outmaneuvered them all, how you stayed calm even when they threatened you. You were like a secret agent or something. I laughed. Hardly. I was just a woman protecting what mattered most. My home, my family, my right to make my own decisions. That's not heroic. That's just refusing to be a victim. I want to be like that when I'm older, strong like you. You already are, sweetheart. You risked everything to warn me. That took more courage than anything I did. Martha came through the door without knocking, carrying a pie. Apple cinnamon. Thought we could use something sweet. As we sat around the table, 4 generations of women, bound by crisis and love, I looked out the window at the farm Harold and I had built. The fields we'd planned to plant with apple trees were finally being prepared for spring planting. The barn had been repaired. The house had been secured and updated. But more than that, it felt like mine again. Not threatened, not contested, just home. My phone rang. Aretha Herman's number. Helen, good news. The court has officially dismissed all challenges to your property ownership. Everything's clear. The farm is yours, free and clear, and all attempts to establish trusts or transfers have been voided. Thank you, Aretha, for everything. Thank you for trusting me. And Helen? What you did, standing up for yourself, fighting back. You've inspired 3 other women to come forward about similar schemes. They'd been told they were confused, incompetent, that they should just sign over control to family members. Your case showed them they had rights, options, power. You didn't just save yourself, you helped others find the courage to save themselves. After I hung up, I shared the news with everyone. Judy raised her coffee mug in a toast. To Mom, who proved that wisdom beats cunning, patience beats aggression, and lived experience beats youthful arrogance every single time. To Grandma, Kathy added, the toughest person I know. To Helen, Martha finished, who reminds us all that we're never too old to fight for what's right. We clinked mugs and I felt something settle in my chest. Not closure exactly. Timothy's path to redemption would be long, and the scars from Roxanne's betrayal would take time to fade. But peace. The peace of knowing I'd stood my ground, protected my family, and refused to be diminished by age or circumstances. That evening, as the sun set over the Montana mountains painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, I walked out to the spot where Harold and I used to sit on summer nights. A weathered bench overlooking the fields, his favorite place to think. I could almost feel him beside me. We did it, I whispered to the wind. We protected our home, kept our family together, or at least saved the parts worth saving. Your evidence helped bring justice. And Harold, our granddaughter is safe. She's strong and brave and everything we could have hoped for. The wind shifted, rustling through the cottonwoods, and I chose to believe it was his answer. I thought about Patricia's warning, about powerful people who might still be out there, about the possibility that this wasn't truly over. But I also thought about what I'd learned, that I was stronger than I'd believed, more capable than anyone had given me credit for, and that age had given me something youth couldn't match: the wisdom to see through deception and the patience to wait for the right moment to strike. If threats came again, I would face them. But for now, in this moment, watching the sun set over land that was truly mine, surrounded by people who loved me not in spite of my age, but because of the strength it had given me, I was content. The farmhouse lights glowed warm behind me. Inside, Kathy was laughing at something Martha said. Judy was probably already strategizing about tomorrow's legal motions. The life we'd fought for, the family we'd preserved, continued on. And that, I thought, was the truest victory of all. Not the courtroom wins or the criminals behind bars or even the property secured in my name, but this. The proof that a woman over 60, dismissed as elderly and confused, could outthink, outmaneuver, and ultimately outlast everyone who'd underestimated her. I stood up from Harold's bench and walked back toward the house. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: healing a broken family, managing Kathy's trauma, helping Timothy find redemption. But tonight, we had survived. And survival, I'd learned, was its own kind of triumph. I paused at the door, looking back one more time at the mountains, the fields, the life Harold and I had built and I had fought to keep. Then I stepped inside, locked the door behind me, and joined my family at the table. Where I belonged. Where I would always belong. Home. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.